It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Friday, October 25th. I'm Wendy Corr, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily newsroom, brought to you by 4 Wyoming PAC. 4 Wyoming PAC says this November, Wyoming will vote to allow residential homes to be taxed at a lower, fairer rate, even the playing field, and give families a much-needed break. 4 Wyoming PAC wants you to vote yes on Amendment A. A nameless bear, given a research number, launched onto the world stage doing what bears do, having babies and protecting them. During an interview with award-winning journalist and author Todd Wilkinson on Cowboy State Daily's morning show with Jake Nichols on Thursday, Todd spoke about how Grizzly 399, the 28-year-old mother of 18 known cubs, captured the public's attention over the years. Cowboy State Daily's Dale Killingbeck highlights just one of the many stories about the legendary Grizzly.
There was an incident in 2007 where she had her cubs with her and they were eating on an elk carcass near Jackson Lodge, and apparently a man walked out and was wandering on a trail, but there had been warnings about not going on the trails, and he ended up getting bitten by 399 and her cubs. He told authorities later that he didn't want anything done to the bear because she was doing her thing as a mama bear, and the wildlife officials, the park officials, decided that they were not going to do anything. If the park had made that decision, then 399 wouldn't have become the 399 that we all know and love.
The most popular bear mama in the world was killed Tuesday night when she was hit by a car in Lincoln County. The local sheriff's office has deemed the incident an accident and didn't ticket the driver. Wildlife photographer Kelly Ogilvie learned that Grizzly 399 was dead Wednesday afternoon. After the initial shock wore off, there was only one thing on her mind: the status and location of Grizzly 399's body. Ogilvie spoke to Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi about what she and others would like to see done with the body of the world-famous mama bear.
They don't want the head and the paws to be cut off like that grizzly up in Gardner back in July. They don't want the body to end up in a dump. They want 399 to be treated with dignity and respect. The telling thing is, everyone that I've spoken to, everywhere that you go, when a bear gets hit by a car, this isn't the first bear that's gotten hit by a car or been poached or anything like that. It's a carcass, so it's the disposal of a carcass. Everyone's saying we need to be dignified and respectful of 399's body, which just shows the emotional investment that everybody has in this bear.
Ultimately, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service will decide what happens to Grizzly 399. Regardless of what happens to the bear's body, the unanimous consensus is that people want to be informed throughout the decision-making process. Well, for the second time in 5 days, Wyoming law enforcement Thursday rescued a teen girl kidnapped in another state. The Cheyenne Police Department, with help from the Wyoming Highway Patrol, recovered the teen girl reported as a runaway from Westminster, Colorado. Cowboy State Daily's Greg Johnson reports that the girl was riding with an 18-year-old who led law enforcement on a high-speed chase up and down I-25 near Cheyenne.
They went several miles north on I-25. Then, for some reason, a state trooper said they really can't fathom. He turned around and went back south and right into the waiting pursuit that was behind him with the state troopers, the Cheyenne Police, Laramie County Sheriff's Office. They used spike strips to get him stopped.
Thursday's highway stop was the second in 5 days in which a Wyoming highway stop ended with the safe recovery of a kidnapped teen girl. On Sunday, Highway Patrol troopers and Rawlins Police stopped a registered sex offender from Nebraska who was suspected of abducting a 13-year-old girl from her home in South Dakota. U.S. Representative Harriet Hageman, Governor Mark Gordon, and 26 members of the Wyoming legislature filed briefs this week urging the U.S. Supreme Court to hear a lawsuit brought by the state of Utah that could result in more than 200 million acres of federal lands being turned over to western states. Cowboy State Daily's Leo Wolfson reports that the argument is in regards to the federal government's ownership of land in western states, which, according to the Utah lawsuit, denies them equal statehood and representation when compared to other states with less federal acreage.
They believe the ownership of lands that are not being used for national parks, monuments, or tribal lands is unconstitutional and should be returned to the state. Even though it doesn't directly affect Wyoming immediately with the lawsuit, the result of the lawsuit could absolutely have effect on Wyoming as far as overturning the BLM's right to manage and control these public lands.
Some have called the lawsuit the latest chapter in the Sagebrush Rebellion, a revolt against federal land ownership that arose in the 1970s. The treasurer of the Thermopolis Future Farmers of America fundraising committee admitted to stealing more than $15,000 from the group. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that 36-year-old Cody Stewart now faces 11 felony counts of forgery and 1 of felony theft, all of which allegedly occurred between autumn of 2021 and September of this year.
She's been president of this FFA alumni committee for more than 4 years. And the other committee members got together and met with the police chief. And according to court documents, they splayed out all of their bank records and showed just this depletion, with Stewart allegedly writing checks to herself. These require 2 signatures, but the 11 of the dozen felony charges she faces, say that she forged the president's signature repeatedly. Court documents say that she completely depleted this account from thousands in the black to down in the negative.
Each charge is punishable by a maximum of 10 years in prison and $10,000 in fines. Stewart is set for a preliminary hearing October 30th in Thermopolis Circuit Court. Well, Cowboy State Daily is visiting coffee klatches across Wyoming before the election to see what topics are being discussed. The Fox News Allstars in Lander is one of the state's oldest groups. Politics dominates the conversation, mostly leaning right, but not all the time, reports Bill Sniffen, who's been a member of this group for over 50 years.
I've been going to it for over 50 years. And back when we started, it was probably 50-50 Democrat and Republican. But just like the state of Wyoming, it's shifted more to where now it's pretty much all Republican, very much. It was interesting when we talked about it, Stan Cannon, who used to be press secretary for Al Simpson, he says, "Whoa, folks, I'm not going to vote for Trump." We all thought, really? And his reasoning was that he was one of only 15 congressional staffers that had privileges to go on the Senate floor. And he said, boy, after January 6th, he said, I'm never going to vote for Trump. So anyway, even though we still are the Fox News All-Stars, we did have one dissenter. He didn't say whether he was going to vote for Kamala or not, but he just wasn't going to vote for Trump.
And now let's take a look at today's weather with Cowboy State Daily meteorologist Don Day.
Well, after a blustery Thursday where we saw a little bit of mountain snow and some showers and wind on the plains, well, things will be a lot more settled as we head through this Friday. In fact, today through the weekend looks great. One more great fall weekend coming up, whether it's high school football later on today and this evening or the Cowboys Friday afternoon and evening in Laramie. The weather's going to be about as good as you're going to get it in late October. Now, this is all just before some big changes coming next week. Our confidence is high of rain and snow overspreading the state, especially late Monday night into Tuesday and Wednesday. Hunters and livestock interests and travelers early next week will need to keep an eye on the weather.
You can get Don's full forecast on the Cowboy State Daily website. I'll be back in just 15 seconds with more news.
Comparing your home to a luxury resort is like comparing apples to oranges. So why are they being taxed the same? Amendment A allows our homes to be taxed at a lower, fairer rate than commercial properties. Vote yes on Amendment A.
An effort to limit press photography at the Wyoming legislature has been scrapped for now. On Thursday, the Select Committee on Legislative Facilities, Technology, and Process voted unanimously to recommend not enacting a policy that would prohibit photo and video journalists from entering the halls that run next to the House and Senate floors. Cowboy State Daily's Leah Wolfson reports that the proposal had originally passed at the committee's meeting in September, but was brought back up on Thursday after a large outcry from the public.
The proposal was originally brought as a way to allow lawmakers to have more privacy at the Capitol and basically close off the hallways that surround the chambers that to some seem should not be open to the press. This would have been a major blow to press access at the Wyoming legislature. Many people spoke on behalf of rejecting this proposal on Thursday, and it seemed that the committee had already changed its mind about it even before the discussion had started.
Senator Chris Rothfuss of Laramie, who originally supported the recommendation, said the substantive purpose of the policy change was far outweighed by the public's concern on the issue. The The Cheyenne Police Department is asking a federal judge to dismiss a black man's racial discrimination lawsuit, saying the man didn't stay within the rules for making that claim. In Gene Clemenson's lawsuit, he claims he was harassed and falsely accused of drunk driving after making a haphazard stop as he turned right on a red light 2 years ago. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that the police department is asking the U.S. District Court for Wyoming to dismiss his allegations, saying they don't fit the proper legal framework.
It's a lot harder to sue the government in Wyoming than anyone else. There's a set of rules you have to follow. You don't follow those rules, you have to make certain showings. And they're saying you didn't do that. You have these bald legal assertions, and that part should be thrown out.
The department is also asking the court to remove Clemenson's request for punitive damages. And Cowboy State Daily has been running a series of stories about haunted places and ghostly experiences. On tomorrow's episode of The Roundup, we'll take a journey to some of the most haunted places and hear some of the spookiest stories in the Cowboy State. One of those stories has been told by Cowboy State Daily's executive editor, Jimmy Orr, about a ghostly encounter he had in 1996 when he was the incoming press secretary for Governor Jim Gehringer.
There was a wall that just had the photo of every governor in Wyoming. And they were all the same. They all were the photo and the glass pane over it and everything. And I noticed one of the photos didn't have a glass pane. So I asked Danny about it. I said, why doesn't Alonzo Clark have glass pane on it? And he goes, it's haunted. And what do you mean? He goes, listen, we have tried to put the glass back on the pane numerous times. Whenever we do it, it falls. So he doesn't like having a glass pane over him. And so what I did is I bought a new frame for Alonzo Clark, put it over, and nothing happened. And one night, I hear a crash. True story, Wendy. I hear a crash, and I walk up to the office. It's probably about 9:30 at night or whatever. And sure enough, Alonzo Clark's photo is on the ground and glass all over the place.
You can tune in to The Roundup this weekend and you'll hear the full story and more. Thanks for tuning in to today's video newscast. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.